National news, and we go to the USA, gearing up for one of its most pivotal elections in recent history. Tuesday is D-Day, but already over 90 million Americans have cast their votes in early in-person voting or via mail-in ballots. This weekend saw a flurry of last-minute campaigning for both Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Meanwhile, concerns around the voting process and civil unrest worries have not abated. Let's get your latest news from our Washington correspondent, Simon Marks. Hi there, Simon. Before we chat, I just want to play a couple of clips from the various rallies held over the weekend. Let's start with a clip from Donald Trump this past weekend.
If we win, let me tell you, if we win, you're going to see a stock market that's going to go like a rocket ship. I wish our Supreme Court treated us as well, frankly. That was some decision that was made, right? Let's not listen to the decision, this most important election in the history of our country, November 3rd. Let's not wait November 3rd. Let's extend the date. Let's give people more time to put in ballots, right? Why can't they put their ballots in earlier so you have plenty of time and so we can have a decision on November 3rd, the evening of November 3rd? And you know what's going to happen? Especially with Pennsylvania. A man was on television yesterday. We allow 5 points for cheating, he said, in Pennsylvania, right? Think of that. One of the best pollsters in the country, the one who got it right 4 years ago. He said, Trump's going to win Pennsylvania, but you have to allow 5 points for cheating. You know when the cheating is going to take place? From the 3rd to whatever the date is that they gave. No, that's very disappointing. That was a very political decision, I have to say. They have not treated me well.
And now let's listen to a clip from one of Joe Biden's weekend appearances.
Right to worship is a fundamental right in America. And as Americans, we should be proud that people from all over the world find a home here in our communities, here in Michigan, where the right to vote is the most fundamental right and the right that protects our religious freedoms. And so my heart goes out to all those. 10 years seems like a long time, but not if you lost somebody. It's like yesterday. So you have my empathy, my sympathy, and my support.
I understand this is a president who wants full credit for the economy he inherited and gets zero blame for the pandemic he ignored, but the job doesn't work that way. Tweeting at the TV doesn't fix things. Making stuff up doesn't make people's lives better. You've got to have a plan. You've got to do the work. And along with the experience to get things done, Joe Biden has concrete plans and policies that will turn our vision of a better, fairer, stronger country into reality.
Well, let's bring in Simon Marks. Simon, I know that Trump was on an absolute whirlwind this weekend. I think he was in 5 battleground states, having loads of rallies. Biden and Obama, a lot less of those big gatherings, doing more the sort of drive-through rallies. But in terms of the messaging, we know that so many people have already voted. Surely this is about getting to the undecided, and such a different tone, it seemed to me. Just give us your assessment of the 2 campaign strategies at this point.
Yeah. No question about that, Sal. I mean, essentially there are 2 things that they're trying to do here, both campaigns. They're trying to reach the last very few handful of floating, undecided voters out there that might, at this very late stage, be persuaded to get behind one candidate or the other. But even more importantly than that, they're trying to get the vote out, because they know that voter turnout in this election, given the record levels of early voting that we've already seen, is going to be unprecedented. That whirlwind of campaigning continues here today. Donald Trump is doing 6 events in North Carolina, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and then he goes back to Michigan again, all in a single day. Joe Biden's doing 3 events, 1 in Ohio and 2 in Pennsylvania, culminating with a huge appearance that will cap off his campaign, where he'll be flanked by Lady Gaga in Pennsylvania. But look, I mean, the difference in tone here is setting the stage for a sense of foreboding in the United States. Every single business and office building in the center of Washington, D.C. has now been boarded up. We're seeing similar pictures coming from the centre of New York. There are fears about civil unrest here. And you heard there President Trump essentially creating a straw man. And that straw man is that he insists the outcome of this election must be announced on election night, Tuesday night, the early hours of Wednesday morning here in the United States. But that's not written into law. In fact, normally on election night, you end up with a projection from the television networks of what is going to happen. The final result often isn't certified until days later. And with so many people having participated through postal voting, the president keeps trying to intimate that postal votes are somehow second-class votes in the United States. The election should not be held up for those votes to be counted. And that is the theme to which Donald Trump's going to be returning day after day in the days ahead.
I just want to understand, Simon, who decides how long you wait after the election day for those mail-in? Is it up to each state to decide? It just seems very unclear from this side. But is there a plan?
It's pretty unclear here, Sally, but the truth is that this isn't one election. It's more than 50 elections, because each state all over the country runs its own election. And those Supreme Court decisions that have so angered President Trump were rulings that were handed down last week, for example, regarding election law in North Carolina. The Supreme Court says in North Carolina, postal votes must be counted even if they arrive 9 days after Election Day. They have to be postmarked before or on Election Day, but they can arrive up to 9 days later and still be counted, which is why the outcome here is so uncertain, because if in some of these battleground states you end up with razor-thin margins separating Joe Biden from Donald Trump, then it will come down to those late-arriving postal votes that could ultimately determine whether one candidate or the other wins, for example, the state of Florida or Pennsylvania or Ohio. And that's why Donald Trump is indicating that the second the polls close tomorrow night here, his army of lawyers is going to start challenging again these rulings on postal votes in some of those key states.
I can tell you, Simon, you're not going to sleep for days. I have to ask you about the Senate election, which is also being held on Tuesday, I understand. Now, if the Senate moves into Democratic hands, which I believe is quite possible, but Trump does get back as president, what will that mean?
Well, that will mean complete gridlock here. A House of Representatives and a Senate controlled by the Democrats, the presidency controlled by the Republicans, absolutely no capacity for the president and Democrats on Capitol Hill to work together. They loathe one another. President Trump hasn't spoken to the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi, in months. It would be absolute, total polarized gridlock. The flip side of that coin, of course, is what happens if Joe Biden wins the presidency and the Democrats control both houses of Congress. Then suddenly that would be a Democratic Party clean sweep, and they'd have the capacity, theoretically, to do pretty much anything they wanted here, which is one of the reasons why the Republicans are going to fight hammer and tong in the days ahead to try and avert that reality from dawning.
Well, thank you very much, our Washington correspondent, Simon Marks.